Bollocks! 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 Hello to all our chums out there. Yes, it's Toyah and Robert, your deeply unqualified agony aunts, ready to serve up a pile of useless answers to a few of your very many burning questions.
Rather brilliant questions this week. The Raul Guerrero, you say, do you have any spinal tap moments?
Yes, I have two. And I think that Raul Guerrero G is suggesting that has a band I've been in really screwed things up. Yeah, many times. However, let me tell you real life spinal tap moments. The King Crimson incarnation in 1984, Tony and Aidan, Billy and Bob were staying at the Sofitel Beverly Center, Ma Maison it became, and we all went over to the cinema in the Beverly Center to watch Spinal Tap together. That was on the film's release in 84. But hang a back for a real life moment. In 1992, I believe it was, I was checking in at the Virgin desk to fly to Japan to work with David Sylvian, you know, the cheap seats over here. Over here, where the posh people check in, there was Christopher Guest.
I had the same agent as Christopher.
And Harry Shearer.
Wow.
And I went over and I seized Christopher's hand and I said, Nigel Tufnell, my hero. And then Harry, Derek Smalls. Now, I appreciate this was probably a terrible thing to do, and I don't do this. But I was so overwhelmed by two of my proper heroes.
I think they'd have been thrilled that you did that.
Christopher had a very mixed expression on his face, along the lines of WTF is this?
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I think Raul is asking, have you had any moments similar to Spinal Tap?
Yeah, but for now, over to my wife.
Oh, okay. I've had many. I mean, I have a very brilliant band who can pick up when I go completely off the page. And quite often, because we do long shows, they're not quite as long as King Crimson, but we can be on stage for 2 hours. And I can go completely off stage. I get in the off page. I get in the zone. And the band are just so fantastic at realizing what I'm doing. I even instinctively rearrange songs and they're with me. They're only ever one beat away from me. And sometimes for them, I'd say that's a Spinal Tap moment. I can't say that I've had any moments where little mini Stonehenges have appeared. But no, have you?
There was a situation in Red Bank, Count Basie Theatre, I believe in 2018, 17 or 18, when we were playing the Construction of Light. Now, the Construction of Light is very complex to play because everyone in the band is doing different signatures. Some in 19/7, others 4/3, and on it goes. And T. Lev comes in with after drums set things up in an incomprehensible fashion. T. Lev comes in and whirns along. But Tony came in just 2 beats ahead of, where everyone else in the band had anticipated. So it was a question then, me looking at Jacko, looking around the band, what do we do? Do we join Tony playing in incomprehensible time signatures? Remarkable piece written by Trey Gunn. We tried, we stopped, and meanwhile Tony had to keep going. So
was he laughing?
I don't believe Tony was laughing, no. He kept going and it was utterly stunning. I mean, stick solo, T. Lev, it was phenomenal. Not quite what we'd intended, but it was astonishing. And we did stop and then we began again. But we so loved what Tony did, his solo, unexpectedly, that the DJM Live put up a free download of the track.
Okay, let's backtrack. You stopped. Did you actually, the whole band, stop the track live on stage in front of the audience and start again?
Yes.
Oh, I've done that many times. I've had to do that sometimes because we have actually had musicians come in the wrong key, but it's rare and the audience love it happening.
Yeah. Well, King Crimson has never had many Stonehenges or other megalithic earthworks.
I've had men fall through the roof at venues. I played Oxford Playhouse, 1981, where it could have sold for a whole week, and there were so many fans outside trying to get in. Men were climbing on the roof and removing the tiles of the Oxford New Playhouse Theatre, and they were actually falling through the roof, coming down the curtains. It was strangely exciting, and there were just so many ambulances about. And by the end of the gig, I would say there were more ambulance men on stage and more of these men who'd come through the roof on stage than there were band members. It was wild back then, wild.
There's a very thin line between stupid and clever.
And quite astonishing. So have you finished that answer?
Yes.
Okay. Swiss Tony, love the name. Last March, after a quarter of a century on this planet, I was diagnosed with autism. Learning this brought me a sense of clarity I'd been missing my entire life. I'd like to say short life at that point, Swiss Tony. Has anyone ever suggested that either of you have autism or Asperger's? Gary Newman, his wife, and his beautiful 3 daughters came to this house about 3 years ago, and within 5 minutes of being here, one of the very intelligent daughters turned to Robert and said, "Are you OCD?" And I just hugged her because she saw it. She saw it immediately.
Shall I respond now, dear?
And Swiss Tony, I'm so happy you've had this diagnosis, because it really is important that you know you've not done anything unusual, you've not done anything wrong. It's just part and who of what you are. And then you will understand why people around you are so different to you. It's so vital to have that diagnosis. And I hope that you can now continue through the rest of a very long life being you and not trying to be anything other, and understanding that some of us do suffer separateness. Sorry, I think
that's a very good answer, Lovey.
Okay.
Well, in terms of the answer, has anyone suggested that I'm autistic or suffer from Asperger's? Only my wife. My wife has also suggested on many occasions that I'm OCD. So I went online this morning and looked up OCD. OCD obsessions are repeated, persistent, and unwanted thoughts, urges or images that are intrusive and cause distress and anxiety. Well, that describes my life in the music industry.
It does. I hate to say it, but it does.
Well, and in addition to that, if a person like myself is very driven in a sense of a trajectory in their life, at which point does that become merely driven with a sense of trajectory, and at what point is it obsessive?
As someone who's been married to you for 35 years, you are phenomenally intelligent, and you are very, very different. And I'm very different. And I think it's a miracle we found ourselves, because we both have very similar needs, and they're not... You know, we get kind of overwhelmed if we're surrounded by a lot of people, but we're not antisocial. We have to find coping mechanisms. So I think the fact that we found each other and we have such clarity of insight with each other, we're really bloody lucky.
I am very lucky to have you as my wife.
I agree. Garrington, do you consider tribute bands and performers to be useful for the creative music industry, or are they purely tiresome imitators? Would you permit a tribute act of Toyah or King Crimson? Can I go first?
Please.
In my line of work, I play many, many venues across the UK. I can do as many as 150 a year. And these venues have other stages within the venue, and tribute acts play. And some of the tribute acts, I'd say the majority, are absolutely stunning. And a good example of this is the Counterfeit Stones. They are breathtaking breathtakingly good, and they bring the Stones music to the audience when really the Stones can only play stadia. They can't go into these small venues, so it means an audience can connect to their favourite artist. I have so much respect for the bands that do this really, really well. I don't think they have creative use within the music industry because, of course, they can only sell their merch at their gigs. But for the audience, they are hugely precious. There's another one I work with quite often called Atomic Blonde, and they are so respectful of Blondie's work, and they really perfect their imitation of Blondie, and the audience love them, and the audience go into this euphoria. It brings back nostalgia, happy memories, it puts the audience in a happy place, and I really respect that.
Tribute bands have my considerable respect. First of all, on a purely professional level, it takes a lot to be able to honour the music of other artists. And very often, the players in a tribute band play the material a lot better than the stars they're representing. And secondly, on the level where the tribute band is playing that repertoire because they love it, perhaps they even have a deeper connection to the essence of the music than the players that it's originated with.
I totally agree. And in a way, when we do our Sunday lunch, we're performing songs we love and want to represent and connect to the original artists with. I have so much respect for them. You ask, would I permit a Toyah tribute act? There's only just enough work for me. I'd be quite uncomfortable knowing there's a tribute act out there because I want the work. You've got Crimson tribute bands, haven't you?
Yes, to a degree. So would I support or encourage? I wholly support and encourage people who would wish to play King Crimson music and take it out into the world. Please.
Yeah. Juan Carlo dos Napoli, who chooses the songs for Sundays?
Toyah and Sydney Jake at the moment.
Yeah, I do a whole list of songs that I love. We send the list to Robert. He chooses ones that he feels excited to play. We have to take a few things into consideration, that without drums anchoring the beat, certain songs are really difficult to do. We're learning an AC/DC song at the moment, which is reliant on drums, and it's taking a few weeks for me to kind of pin it down. When we did Evermore. It was a particularly difficult song for me because the way that song is written, the vocal is intrinsically part of the guitar. It's written like a guitar part. So for me to perform that the way I like to perform was challenging, and thank goodness I had that beautiful milk snake to perform with. Number of the Beast I found really, really hard to perform. And it's just because I really need a drummer.
Yeah, there were technical concerns for me. If there's no bass and there's no drums, how can Robert anchor the parts together in an honourable way to respect the original guitar parts? And at the same time, if the guitarist is coming on the upbeat, I have to put the downbeat in.
Yeah,
so,
you do.
Yeah.
And now Sydney Jake is very young and could easily be a child of ours, and he grew up at a specific time where rock music resonated with him, and he quite frequently suggests songs that are from his childhood. So I love rock, and I kind of suggest the more mainstream stuff. And then we decide which we think the audience are going to get a big thrill from. So it's a little bit of a melting pot between the three of us. Sharon Bryan, did we used to live in separate houses? Yes, we still do in a way.
No.
Do we not?
No.
Okay.
All right, here I would like to differentiate between fact and feeling. When my wife says yes, we did live apart, and we frequently do now, this is a truth for my wife's feeling life. Now, if you look at Robert, who between 1997 and 2008 spent probably more of my time in Adrian and Martha Ballou's production suite in the cellar than I did with T. And then you go back to 92, and I was away with David Sylvian and Crimson from 94. So when my wife says, yes, I was living in a separate house, this is true to her feeling experience.
Okay, I sometimes have to live and work in London, and Robert doesn't like to do that. So you do have a separate house that isn't in London.
Yeah, well,
Get out of that one, matey. It's been a lovely lockdown though, because we've been here for a year, and It's been quite wonderful on that level. Dave Julian, what is the role of randomness in the creative process? Is there an example of a mistake that has made the end result better than the original intent? When I first met Robert, we were doing a recording of a song by another artist called Pulling the Boxers Apart. And Robert insisted I sang Pulling the Boxes Apart, and it was about a breakup, and I never understood it, and for me that was a very random moment. For me as a lyricist, there are many random moments that lead to better things, especially with making meaning deeper. And one of them is if you've got a set of 8 couplets, and at the very end, you take away the last line of the rhyming couplet and add something completely obscure, it usually adds a deeper meaning to the whole of the 8 couplet sequence. It's a really lovely trick to play when recording.
All right, well, randomness for me doesn't have sufficient necessity. Let me explain. In any situation which is guaranteed, for example, a record company would like a guaranteed hit, so why don't you make your hit record exactly the same all over again? But anything which is guaranteed and definite is not, by definition, creative, which is entirely new and novel. So to introduce randomness is a way of freeing the moment or unfixing the moment. But pure randomness doesn't have sufficient necessity. So if we add significance to this in some way, that the whole process lives and dies on the creative moment, this then becomes a hazardous situation where chance and value come together, and this makes the moment dramatic and real.
I agree, and I also disagree, because I think randomness within a drama as an actress, a great writer can add something random that just suddenly gives incredible meaning. Am I clear on that?
Yeah, I think so, Lemmy.
Yeah, and I've been on stage where someone's improvised and it's obviously been random, and you just think, oh my goodness, we're keeping that in.
But the point is, this is a moment of value and significance.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yes. Yeah.
And mistakes are obviously the key to learning. There is no mistake save one, the failure to learn from a mistake. And earlier I was talking about the construction of Light, which, as written, didn't have a stick solo. But that was upgraded by T. Lev simply. His simple random situation was to come in 2 beats earlier than everyone else in the band.
He was just upstaging you all. He's so brilliant.
He succeeded.
Roger Russell, you say, why don't you two do a cruise ship tour? I've done many cruise ships, giving lectures and giving concerts on cruise ships. And I stopped for a while because you have to be on the ship for so long. The last one I was on in 2011, I was on it for 2 weeks. And that's such a loss of time and work for me. I never get 2 weeks off. But I am in the process of negotiating with the P&O Britannia to do 14 concerts on that ship. I think it's the end of July. So we're in the process of looking into me doing that. But you wouldn't do a show with me on a cruise ship, would you? You'd hate it.
I don't know is the answer. Would I take a cruise with my little lovey to see the fjords of Norway, or
love that.
Borealis, or
Alaska?
Yes, well, perhaps that kind of cruise, but a professional cruise, I have no idea.
Okay. Phil Hill, Ulster Hall, Belfast, 1988, my first gig and the best gig. Do you remember it? I do remember it, Phil. I don't remember it being 1988. I think it was 1982 and it was a riot. Because if it was 88, it would have been us, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Okay, this was 82. And I remember looking out on a seething mass of hysterical young men and thinking no one can control this crowd. It was mammoth. And I remember my costume got torn off me and I was left on the stage in just my tights and bra. It was magnificent. And it just suited the music at the time. Andy Mapp, are you both free on August the 7th? No, I'm in Belfast. I fly to Belfast with Chesney Hawkes to perform Let's Rock in Belfast Park.
And I will be in Phoenix, Arizona with King Crimson.
So what's the magic chord today?
Well, little lovey, it's not a magic chord this week, it's magic rhythm. And this emerging from my guitar lesson this week with my only personal guitar student. Now, the rhythm. This is a rhythm called 6/8 plus 2. It's within 4/4. How do you make 4/4 interesting? Well, 6/8 plus 2 in its simple format is... Well, it's not overly exciting. So, to quote an exceptionally fine musician I once worked with, who was stuck on a 2-note riff, he said, I'll just hip this up a bit, dig, and played a lot more notes. So let's hipping up this rhythm a bit, dig. First of all, let's take 6/8 plus 2. 6/8 plus 2. Now what we might do is extend this from a 1-bar phrase to a 2-bar phrase and reposition the 3s and the 2s. For example, or if we're playing chords, maybe that's the magic rhythm.
I love it, and what a great sound.
And no mistake, well, no very visible mistakes.
There's been a few questions. Did someone come in and do the body painting for satisfaction on Sunday lunch? And I did it myself in the mirror. And the bathroom was an absolute mess afterwards, but I managed to do it. And also, before we go, I would like to congratulate the writer, the producers, the director, and all the cast of my last movie, Give Them Wings, which has just won Best Feature Film in the London Independent Film Festival. Congratulations, everyone. This means distributors are really interested and are bidding over it. And that's what the film industry needs at the moment. So congratulations.
Congratulations from Robert too.
Everybody stay safe. We will see you for Sunday lunch tomorrow, which is ever so wicked and a trip down memory lane. And we will see you next week as well for more Agony Aunts.
Lovely, there's been no bollocks this week.
There's no bollock,
No
cow.
bollocks at all.
It's a perfect show. Everyone, stay safe. We're thinking of you. Lots of love from Toyah.
And from Robert too.